It's time to have some courage. It's time to have some backbone. It's time to have some courage. Be bold. Be brave. You will win. Excite people. Don't be afraid to lead. All right. So yeah, let's get to the Sunday shows. There's a massive amount of commentary on here. AOC did a 20-minute hit. It was really good. We're going to get to it right now. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joins ABC. Asked about her political future, she says, anything is possible.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a huge week. What does Abdel El-Sayed's victory in Michigan say about the future of the Democratic Party?
I think that we are in a time of renewal for the Democratic Party, and it's tremendously exciting for all of us, for the big tent of the Democratic Party. We have really an ascendance of a young, inspiring, exciting electorate, energizing wave of candidates that I think really inject a new energy to the Democratic Party and add to the toolbox of candidates that we have to win the midterm elections, hopefully in November.
And as you'd seen progressives winning in a lot of these other primaries, it was often dismissed, people saying, oh, this is in very blue parts of the country, in big cities. But this is Michigan. I mean, this is battleground Michigan, and he won. Now he has the biggest test. Can he win in November? What does he have to do to win over those Democrats who opposed him?
Well, you know, I think that this really is a moment, not just in Michigan, but across the country, where the party is unifying. The party is unifying, and it is focused on the November elections. We understand that our priority is the working class of this country, and we have to make the case that we're here to make people's lives better. And the Republican Party right now is jacking up prices, making housing impossible to afford. And we are focused on everything from healthcare to your grocery bill and making it more affordable for working people.
You know, this week there was also a prominent Republican, I mean, a very prominent Republican, who said something.
It's kind of interesting that what has taken place is that we have become the serious ones, right? The left flank was often presented as like being childish, okay? Having pie-in-the-sky ideals and representing a totally unrealistic scenario that doesn't appeal to the broader working class movement, right? And that left media is also deeply unserious. Left media is deeply unserious. We don't actually talk about the real issues, all this stuff. And what's really interesting is when I have a candidate on, we're talking for 2 hours about policy. And the candidates that we have on our side are the ones who are actually saying, look, here is how we're going to solve these crises. Like there's a real crisis taking place in America. Here are our policy solutions to said crisis. And the establishment Democrats, on the other hand, perhaps one of the greatest examples of this, are deeply invested in online beefs. They're very petty, you know? Like Haley Stevens is quick to support Abdul Sayed, and I really respect her for doing that, and I acknowledge it. Having said that, however, it bears repeating. It bears examination to look back at her final days in the primaries. Abdul Sayed was talking about money in your pocket, money out of politics, Medicare for all. Abdul Sayed was talking about universal child care. Abdul Sayed was talking about Medicare for all. Haley Stevens was talking about how people were making fun of her voice and the cool kids online were making fun of her, and how Abdul Sayed was going to a Maoist pool party. Which side is the more serious side? I mean, seriously, pull yourself out of the situation. Forget that like one side is backed by corporate entities and whatnot, and just listen to the message coming from both of these parties. If you were just an outsider trying to comprehend American politics, you'd look at that and go, okay, the serious side, the adult side is the one that's talking about policies, right? That's what's so interesting about this dynamic. Yes, we have sometimes on this broadcast, certainly moments where it's like childish. We're playing video games and stuff like that. But ultimately, if you look at the totality of like the advocacy, you look at the coverage here, I spend 8 hours a day talking about American foreign policy, American domestic policy, whereas mainstream media, for the most part, is trying to find these like instances of drama. It's interesting that they have started doing slop when the expectation from the average American is that we cover slop and they cover the serious stuff. It's a very, very interesting predicament. It's a very interesting dynamic that we found ourselves in.
Things about wealthy corporations profiting, effectively fleecing Americans. It sounded a lot like what I've heard you said. I want to play this and see your reaction.
Sure.
They're making too much money, okay? Based on a shortage, they're making too much money. I don't like it. When you look at one company where they made 12 times what they made the year before, they're going to give some of that back to the public. And they better cut the retail price, the consumer price.
Well, that was Donald Trump, obviously, talking about oil and gas companies and high gas prices. What did you make of that?
I think that everyday people, everyday Americans, we can see the very large gap between what Donald Trump says and what Donald Trump does. And so Donald Trump may be saying that oil companies are making too much money, but what Donald Trump is doing is starting a reckless war in Iran, having closed-door meetings with oil companies before his election, saying, you know, you give me money, you give me campaign contributions, and I will do whatever you want. And so what we have seen, everything from Supreme Court rulings to Donald Trump's own policy, is what he is doing is jacking up the price, not just at the pump, but at everything that you buy that requires the transportation of goods. And so he can say whatever he'd like from the Oval Office, but I think people are more looking at what he chooses to do.
But that's a reflection of what he is seeing the people care about, what the people are thinking.
And, you know, to the president's credit, he comes from television, and he's very responsive to public sentiment. And so he knows what he needs to say. But again, none of that is going to lower the cost of your rent or your mortgage. None of that is going to lower the interest rates that you're paying. None of that is going to make your grocery bill more affordable. And what we want to know and what we want to see is action.
All right, I want to go back in time just briefly to 2018 when you won. And you absolutely shocked the political world. We saw the pictures of you that night. You were obviously shocked that you had won. You probably don't recall this, but I interviewed you.
That's crazy. Northern Lion is right there. He's always there, man. Northern Lion, the OG woke.
Shocked that you had.
The Canadian agent. Like, what's he doing over here? You know what I mean? I wasn't even in the room, but he was. Is Northern Lion behind the growing socialist movement in America? What the hell?
Won. You probably don't recall this, but I interviewed you hours later, the next morning, and let's just play just a little bit of that.
Sure.
Judging from the reaction that we all saw of you on television, it seemed to surprise you as well.
It did. You know, I wasn't even checking the election results at all. I wasn't even following the precincts coming in. We had driven straight to our little party at a little billiard spot in the Bronx, and we hopped in, and I just kind of walked into a TV set, and I looked at the screen, and I saw not only the numbers, but what those numbers were, and it was a complete shock.
So, I mean, you sound there a lot like you sound today, but you've changed as well, right? How have you changed since you came in as this insurgent rebel at odds with the Democratic leadership? How have you changed?
You know, I think life has a way of really weathering you and adding to your context and your experience. It humbles you, but it also emboldens you in a lot of ways. And I think it has been the greatest privilege of my life to be able to represent the working people of my congressional district. And I think some of the ways that it's changed me has been to be able to come in with so many aspirations for our country, and then to have the remarkable opportunity to be in the arena and try to make the country a better place, challenges and all. And I love that it's hard. I love that I have to, and I get to engage with people from all across the country, elected officials from all across the country, to try to actually fulfill our dreams to guarantee health care to every American.
And you continue to push for change in the Democratic Party, but you're also one of the most prominent figures in that party right now. Your endorsement is incredibly valuable. I've noticed that this time around, this election cycle, you have not endorsed candidates that were challenging Democratic incumbents in the House. And somebody took note of this. A fellow progressive wrote recently, the headline in The Hill was, "Today's cautious AOC would not have endorsed the AOC of 2018." Because you were obviously running against an incumbent. I mean, that's probably correct, right? What's your thinking there?
You know, I wasn't endorsed by anybody when I was running.
Your friends.
Yeah, just some friends. So
Yeah.
I wasn't endorsed by I don't think I was endorsed by a single elected official when I was running for office. And, you know, I think when I see so many of these incredible insurgent candidates that are running today, that's part of what makes me so proud of them, is that they do not answer to any master. They are not beholden to any corporate interest or any party boss. And they are completely independent, which allows them to be responsive to their communities and the people that elected them. And I think that in many ways that makes our movement stronger, when you have to rely on your own organizing skills. And I think that it has proven to be quite successful. And I mean, I see so many of these candidates and they remind me of that moment.
I mean, but like in New York, you had the candidates that were endorsed by Mayor Mamdani, two of whom were challenging sitting members of Congress, powerful members of Congress, Democrats, and you decided to sit that one out. Is that part of wanting to work with your colleagues that are in the House? I mean, what's the...
Yeah, you know, I think we're all in different, you know, politics is also a workplace, and we're all in different positions to that. I endorsed, for example, in New York, on the state level, I endorsed a slate of challengers to incumbents in the Assembly and in the Senate.
Yeah, they did it was a cross endorsement. Zoran couldn't openly go out and stick his neck out and risk like political capital in the New York State legislature. And AOC, much like many others, could not go out and endorse against incumbent Democrats. So they did a cross-promotional slate. It was smart. I think that in the next cycle, we won't have to be as careful, right? We won't have to be as timid. We will be able to make more bold moves. Okay? AOC is not making a bootstraps pull the ladder up behind her argument. All I'm going to say is this, okay? There's an attitude of how popular this movement is and how much social and political capital exists for this movement outside here in this community versus the internal calculation that elected representatives are making. You're coping? I'm not. I'm just explaining to you exactly what it is. I'm telling you exactly what it is. I'm telling you exactly what's going on. One other example I will give you is, for example, actually, I don't know how much I want to reveal about this. Never mind. I'm not. Yeah, sure. That's fine. There is a strategy to what's going on that is a little bit different from DSA, but all I'm saying is there are varying degrees of bandwidth and allowance for different figures in different places. Elected representatives in the House of Representatives have a different allowance, at least from their own personal calculation, than the mayor of New York has a different allowance from his own personal calculation to someone who is outside of the political arena and their calculation, okay? The calculus is always different. I get to do whatever I want to do. I get to be as bold as I want to be. I get to push the boundaries to the best of my ability in ways that an elected representative cannot. And what's frustrating is that a lot of people don't understand that this is a broad coalition. Same with DSA, right? DSA is an organization, is a political organization outside of the Democratic Party, and they get to be as bold as they want to in ways that Democratic electeds would shudder to get on board with. And the more DSA grows in its power and its influence, okay, and a big part of that is coming from elected representatives that are DSA aligned or DSA affiliated or DSA endorsed or even DSA cadre candidates that win these elections, the more DSA's power grows. And the more DSA's power grows, the more influence capabilities DSA has in terms of adding pressure to establishment Democrats and having a say in the National Democratic Party's platform. This is simply put the broadest and this is simply put the most like reductive but broadest theory of change. And I think because change, especially through the political arena, takes an unbelievably long amount of time, most people don't even see those changes and those shifts happening and basically take it for granted when they do happen. One example I will give you is where DSA was and where the American political calculation was in 2016 as far as like socialism goes versus where it is now in only a decade. People like myself didn't exist in 2016, although I was still doing shit, you know. I didn't have a platform. There were no robust left media outlets out there that had competitive sizes in audiences to mainstream outlets. DSA itself was numbering in the 10,000s, not the 120,000. AOC was a barista in 2016. Do you understand? AOC was a barista in 2016. Not a multiple-term incumbent Democratic representative and one of the most popular figures in American politics. So these changes happen over a long period of time. And a lot of people come into it at some point in the movement and just take those changes for granted. They think, of course, this was always the case, right? That's the issue. Why are you forgetting that the Young Turks in 2016? Because the Young Turks is a prominent force, but I'm saying like it wasn't, left media wasn't where it is now. How is that hard to comprehend? It's like saying, what about Air America in 2010? Yeah, sure, it existed, but it was nowhere near the powerful force it has become. Democracy Now! Existed back then too. Chris Hedges was around. Abby Martin was around. This is not a diss on the previous formations of left media. We're talking about the amount of eyeballs and attention and the amount of persuasive capability that left media had in comparison to what it has now.
And I don't work in state government, which gives me a greater freedom to be able to do that and to assess it. And I'm very grateful, you know, that we now have a progressive movement that is in large enough numbers that, you know, it used to be that you could fit 5 people in a closet, and that was the caucus, and now we've grown into quite a successful movement.
She's right, and she's speaking to that change as well. She's speaking to that seismic shift and how it wasn't designed overnight. It took a decade of work, and there will always be newcomers, which we welcome, by the way, with open arms. But there will always be newcomers who say, well, this changed. Look at where we're at. And it's like, listen, this didn't happen overnight. There were a sequence of victories and a sequence of defeats, okay? We didn't arrive here like that.
Wisconsin coming up next, Francesca Hong, who is the Democratic Socialists of America supported candidate for governor. You haven't endorsed her. Are you going to?
No, I haven't endorsed in that race. My focus has been in winning back the Congress, winning back the House, and positioning ourselves to have the best chance possible to win the Senate. So I've been focused on those legislative races.
What do you make of those controversial statements? I'm sure you've seen. I mean, she's, the Thanksgiving dust up. She says she doesn't, still believe that, but the abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won. How do you get around that? I mean, those are not positions that are supported by most of America.
I mean, I think that a lot of these races.
This Twitter account is so funny. Look. You've become K-Hive. Don't worry. One day you will also take it for granted as you are currently, okay? 48-month subscriber. I've seen your Twitter chirping as well. I know. You are who I'm speaking to when I say this kind of change doesn't happen overnight, okay? This kind of change doesn't happen overnight. You say you are K-High for slightly left of center Democrats, okay? AOC and Abdul say coalition probably with genociders. The problem here is you don't understand. Sometimes you got to eat shit, okay? I do it all the time. Many of you don't recognize that in order to build a broader coalition, in order to beef up our ranks, we sometimes have to eat shit. the question I have is this, right? The question I have is this. I am trying to move the needle to the best of my ability to help people reckon with the realities of genocide, to help people understand that, like, why Palestinians resist, for example, right? And as a part of that, where we're at as far as our numbers, where we're at as like mass approval, mass adoption, where we're at requires us to make these sorts of calculations. That's why I don't fault Zoran for, sitting next. It's not even electorally advantageous, Lamount. No, you don't understand it. I'm sorry, chatter. You're anti-electoralist anyway, and I don't fault you for it. You say you have a rational perspective on this. It's a bourgeois electoral system. It's a bourgeois democracy. It's going to churn out the same exact outcomes that are helpful for the bottom line of corporations, the super wealthy, the capital owners. So, of course, you're not as dialed in on the electoral aspect of this situation at all. The notion that a Barack Obama endorsement is not electorally advantageous is perhaps one of the dumbest arguments you can make. I say this as someone who's been endlessly critical of Barack Obama. You're totally ridiculous with that statement. My point is this. If you cannot recall a time when the mayor of New York or any prominent political figure would come out with a video saying Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal and must be arrested, there's a reason for how we got here. And yes, it did take a lot of work. And yes, it did take a lot of victories and far more failures along the way. And if today you have Zoran Mamdani saying Benjamin Netanyahu must be arrested as a war criminal, tomorrow you will have the presidential candidate saying the same. And when that happens, you'll say this is not enough either. And that's fine. We need people that are even more radical, that will understands that the work continues, the struggle continues. I am one of those people as well. The only difference between yourself and myself is that I can play both sides of that aisle. I can be a lot more pragmatic than someone such as yourself. We have to be radical, but we have to be sensible. We have to be radical, but we have to be pragmatic. We have to be radical, but we also have to understand where the mass environment is, where the collective consciousness is. Because you look at the situation and you say, dude, everybody understands Israel committed a genocide. Was that the case 2 years ago? Was that the case 3 years ago? Was that the case 1 year ago? Everybody wants an embargo. It's electorally beneficial. Was that the case 2 years ago, you think? And even if that was the case, did we get anybody elected into positions of power that would actually keep pushing the needle? Many of you have criticized, many of you, radicals have criticized my participation in electoral democracy. We now have more than 8 figures that have openly signed on to sending an arms embargo to the legislature, sending an arms embargo to Israel, a commitment that is literally impossible to even broach. Some of you, unfortunately, sometimes forget object permanence almost, where you just take for granted where we're at now. You understand where we must go, and I agree with you on that, right? But you don't understand how we got here. You forget how we got here. We're talking about a pro-Palestine organizer that was literally kicked off of campus, who now represents the district that campus is in Columbia, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier. She unseated a 5-term incumbent, the head of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. These things are pretty important. And if they weren't important, there wouldn't be this level of unbelievable pushback from corporations. So one thing that I always get sad about is that our enemies understand the significance of this moment, and our allies should too. Even our allies who are further to the left than we are, okay? That's the saddest aspect of this, is that corporations recognize the danger of this movement. Corporations and the bosses, the party elites, the establishment Democrats, the consultants, they understand how terrifying this prospect is. The prospect of democracy, the prospect of moving the needle to the leftward perspective. They recognize it, and that's why they open up an unlimited barrage of attacks. And I sometimes see people who are like, I'm a communist. And is this a psyop? Is the reason why they're trying to shit on Hassan to psy-up us into thinking that he's a radical, not realizing that from their perspective, yes, my assessment and my statements are radical. Of course they see us as radical. Daoni O'Sullivan says, a lot of questions on the Sunday shows about Hasan Piker. Here's some extended bits in a recent interview I did with him. There's a lot of concern in media about platforming fringe figures, but given the amount of time major media invokes Piker, it does seem to me it's about timing as a proper one-on-one tough interview on a Sunday show. I'm not convinced them pushing back proves this is getting gains. The Bernie Crats represent a threat to their position of control of the party. This does not necessarily mean a change of policy. At the end of the day, they pushed back on Obama, and even when he took control of the party, nothing happened, right? Yes, that is the case. And we cannot allow that to happen this time around. The environment shift is going to hold to account, hopefully, these politicians to ensure that the failed promises, the failed promises strategy never takes place once again, because there are far more numbers. That's why I think DSA is very important as well, in order to hold people to account. Okay? You understand? And the more we grow in numbers, the more we become a political force to be reckoned with, the more possible those changes will be. Now, there's also the other side of this. Let's say we lean into a hope and a dream. We lend our support for a presidential run, and then we are betrayed. That also presents a unique opportunity where we change our tactics. I'm not saying we're going to get there, and my job and my belief system requires me to only plan for that possibility while simultaneously still maintaining revolutionary optimism. Do you understand? But from that betrayal will come a even more radical movement that will have to change its tactics. All the while, what you have to remember is we just continue the work. We continue to organize. We continue to be disciplined. We continue to grow our numbers. Because revolution is not spontaneous, and it certainly doesn't happen overnight. A real political revolution requires diligent organizing and creating the solid, disciplined, labor force-backed mass movement that can be at the right place at the right time to take advantage of the shifts that are taking shape in American politics and in politics broadly. That's precisely the reason why this movement has grown over and over again, and now it's beginning to have some kind of leverage. Okay? So we have to do our very best. People always forget the failures that took place before the inevitable victory. They fail. They don't see the countless amounts of failed revolutions. They don't recognize that, this movement doesn't grow overnight. It takes a long ass time. You just got to keep having the vision.
Even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot of that.
Right, she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy.
And I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time, and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
Because and obviously the Democratic Socialists of America are having quite a moment. But you know how Republicans are responding. Let me just give you a brief sampling.
Sure.
I think that her response to this was also like not initially not as dismissive as one would expect from AOC. Now, of course, AOC, so people are going to say like, oh, she watched this or whatever. But I think she did a pretty good job of saying like, look, it was an environment of heightened tension. And there were some people who were looking for different ideals and looking for different solutions, sometimes solutions that could be considered radical. Of course, people who are invested in police abolition are going to literally say, that's not a radical solution, fuck for dismissing it. But I think that was a pretty solid response overall, because she doesn't even close the door entirely on dismissing people in our ranks. Dismissing people in our ranks. It's not dissimilar to my position overall as well, where I say like, look, I'm not a police abolitionist. I'm not a prison abolitionist, but I feel closer to that side of the political spectrum than I do, especially given where we're at currently with our understanding, the average American's understanding with crime and punishment, the draconian measures that we advocate for all the goddamn time, and the allowance that we give the police force to be as violent and as ruthless as they want to, with no accountability whatsoever. I think like when I think about it, it's like, that's why my argument always is like, look, I think this is a broad tent regardless. It's a broad movement regardless. There's going to be some disagreements overall, but like the reality of the matter is the average position, like the normative position on policing and prisons in this country have to dramatically shift to the left position so that we can reduce recidivism in this country, so that we can actually focus on rehabilitation rather than incarceration, to ensure that people that have done crimes can actually reintegrate into society in more successful ways. Other countries have actually paved the path forward in much more meaningful, much more consequential ways, and we just choose to avoid that reality. We're so stunted in our vision, right? And the same with like defund the police, abolish the police. Like, for many, there are very different attitudes on what must be done, right?
Let's call it what it is. It's communism.
The Commie Caucus is coming to Congress.
Communism is on the ballot this November.
We're not going to turn this country into a communist experiment.
Well, you can kind of get a sense of the theme, and obviously the president has said the same thing. But by the way, just a quick definitional thing. What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think, to me, the fundamental differences, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy. And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections and governing democratically, and ensuring that.
I mean, look, there's no defending communism in the mainstream, and this is the democratic socialist opinion broadly. So she's channeling the DSA line here, not just the old DSA line, but just even the current DSA line overall, regardless of the fact that there are many communists within the Democratic Socialists of America.
That the ideas and policies that are implemented are won through popular vote and popular opinion. And so I think that's why so much of what we focus on.
Yeah, she's a DSA rightist through and through. She is not DSA left.
Is also making sure that we are providing for the majority of Americans, guaranteeing health care, raising wages, strengthening the right to a union. And
how would you answer this position? Well, I'm not an elected representative with ambitions of higher office. I have answered this question many times over. What do you say to people who call you a communist? I say, I don't call myself a communist, but I would never oppose that framing, because I don't think the understanding of communism in America is correct. Communism is an end goal of a classless, moneyless, stateless society. It's an evolution from our current understanding of the world. Do you feel like that's a bad way to live? Do you feel like that's a bad mode of existence? I certainly don't think so. You know, how we'll get there or how we'll achieve it, I do not know. But I don't think that's a bad end state. I don't think that's a bad evolution. It's Star Trek. It's the Star Trek timeline. Americans think communism is USSR, Eastern Bloc, repression, gulags, the Gulag Archipelago. Look at the American understanding of, and the Western understanding broadly, due to the Cold War, due to the propaganda, due to Red Scare propaganda, is unbelievably terrifying. It's like very right-wing, very reactionary. The reality of the matter is, of course, an elected representative in the United States of America currently is probably going to shy away from this moniker overall and not waste any bandwidth trying to explain away what it means, especially because they might organically feel the same way about it.
And I think that that's at its core what we're about.
Are you still a member of Democratic Socialists of America?
Of the New York City chapter.
The New York City chapter, not the national.
No.
And what's the difference?
So every DSA chapter is formed locally.
Yeah.
And so the New York City DSA chapter, those are.
I'm not sure what you meant by that. Yeah. I mean, look, technically, every DSA member is a part of DSA. There's definitely a little bit of friction with national versus locals and with New York City DSA in general. But, you know, we hold the line, we hold it together. And I think she's what she's trying to say. Anne, is everything okay? Okay, my mom just like dropped a bunch of glasses in the background, so I was just like, the national too far left to be generally palatable? No, I don't think the national DSA is too far left to be generally palatable, but I do think that the national platform comes from the national convention where everybody goes and votes on what the DSA's program, what the DSA's platform is going to be. And I do not oppose it. I do not oppose it at all. I'm in favor of it, even if I have disagreements. At the end of the day, look, I'm not even a DSA member, right? I'm an outsider. So I'm being very careful with what my opinions are on the matter. DSA is not the Democratic Party. The DSA's goals are not to revitalize the Democratic Party. The DSA's goals are not to propagandize at the behest of the Democratic Party. There's many different caucuses, many different factions, many different ideological tendencies within the DSA. The national program is voted on democratically. However, the ultimate goal of the Democratic Socialists of America is to broadly move America through a process of reforms and maybe even a real political revolution in the long term to a socialist setting, to a socialist organization of the economy. So, of course, the national platform is always going to be a little bit more to the left, a little bit more radical than what the electoral, the electoralist wing of the party is pushing for.
Folks that you know, it's kind of like your local union chapter.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, because I know there was that strange moment in 2024 when the national chapter like took away your endorsement.
Yes.
But I was looking through the DSA program, and this is the national program. I'm sure you've seen the document. It was adopted just a few months ago. But some of the positions here: defund the Department of Defense, close overseas military bases, abolish the police and prison system, grant amnesty to all immigrants in the U.S., replace the Supreme Court and executive judiciary with chosen by lower to Congress, abolish the Senate, public ownership of corporations.
By the way, there's some incredible bangers here. Abolish the Senate, banger. Public ownership of the largest corporations and essential industries. Oh, I'm nutting. Like, as much as I have critiques of like, you know, abolish the police or abolish the prisons, and it's not the biggest issue of all time, especially considering that I think that is a far better moral goal to move in the direction of than the current situation that exists. I mean, dude, this stuff is so good. I mean, this stuff is incredible. I'm glad that it's being talked about. I wish that DSA electeds would be a little bit more, like, would lean into it a little bit more. I know Oliver would if he is elected for sure. But like, this should be our North Star for sure. Like, this is, in some ways, this is a people-backed Project 2025, right? And instead of like corporations and their stooges getting together in a cigar smoke filled back room where they design American society and where the Republican Party should be headed in the direction of, this is a national program, a national platform that is dreaming of a better future. And it's important for, I think, the largest advocates of this program, this platform, like myself, and even some electeds, to at least start getting people to be more open-minded about it, because there's elements in here that are unbelievably beneficial in the long run. And I don't think we should shy away from like, what I'll say is this. I find it sad that we always have to stunt our imagination. We always have to kneecap ourselves, that we can't dream of a better future. You know what I mean? Like, what is that dream? Because depending on the perspective or depending on the timeline, it was an impossible dream to hope for a free Palestine, for example. And now that dream is achievable, right? It's closer than ever before. So it's good. It's good to have moral convictions. It's good to dream of a better future. You know, you ask for as much as you can, and then you get back to the drawing board when your opposition tries to kneecap your movement. It is what it is.
And essential industries. I mean, those are some positions that you're going to be hearing a lot about this fall from Republicans.
And I think we're also going to be hearing a lot about Donald Trump's commitment to getting us into a reckless war in Iran, his collaboration with big companies to make sure that everything from groceries to rent stay sky high. And I think that people are
like, this is the left position, which in my opinion is like super serious, right? This is the left position right now, is like, we want to move the economy in this direction. What is the right-wing position? Enes Kanter joining the WNBA to be like, is that transgender? Like, that's what they're doing. They're charlatans, man. They're charlatans. Do you understand how ridiculous it is that you actually do not have a real clear-cut agenda on the establishment Democratic side? So we're taking advantage of that, and we're trying to say, like, this is our goal. This is the vision for a better future for America. This is what we want to do. And the Republican Party's answer to that is, transgender athletes. Remember transgender athletes? Remember that. Get angry at the transgender athletes. And it's ridiculous. It's so deeply serious.
less interested in these academic debates, and they're more interested in how we're going to bring their bills down and make sure that they can afford to see a doctor.
But do you see, I mean, are those positions you support?
Who's stunting their imagination when you can't come up with an alternative police? Stop ignoring this, dude. Oh my God. Police abolitionists, please. Please, I beg of you, dude. How many times do we have to have this conversation and then it gets clipped by right-wing think tanks and then they just like endlessly posture about this shit? Please, 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 I beg of you, okay? Here, dude, peep the badge. Peep the badge. It says the People's Police, okay? Peep the badge, little bro. It says the People's Police. You see the peoples in front of the police? Peep the badge. A-okay. Okay?
No, but I think that this is a free country. Everyone can have all sorts of beliefs and they can organize around.
Yeah, peep the badge. It says the People's Police. Peep the badge. It means it's democratically organized. It's a democratically organized people's police force, okay? People's peace force, if you want to call it that. The peacekeepers.
Them, and you're free to do what you like and, you know, have conversations with your neighbors. But my job as an elected official is to guarantee healthcare in America. And that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I seek to do.
And what do you say to the moderate Democrats who say, first of all, that you know, they are capitalists and that those positions are going to doom the Democratic Party? Because, again, they're not positions that are supported.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they're free to have their economic identity as they like. And, you know, in terms of dooming the party, the idea that there's a diversity of thought in America among everyday voting people.
Did you already talk about the Kamala Harris endorsement for Abdul? Said a lot of big names were very disappointed that he chose to post about it on his Instagram. I don't know if you've already said anything on the topic. Yeah, I said it's good. It's great. We need those voters, man. We need those voters. We need the unks and the aunties to come out and droves. What do you guys want Abdul al-Sayed to do? Okay. What do you guys want Abdul al-Sayed to do? You want him to come out and be like, I refuse to take the endorsement of the former presidential candidate Kamala Harris? Like, what? Are you insane? You just say thank you and you move on. Okay. Like, wow, I can't believe Abdul al-Sayed refused. First of all, I don't think a lot of people know this, it seems, but Abdul al-Sayed literally already endorsed Kamala Harris. He was the first prominent Muslim figure in the state of Michigan to endorse Kamala Harris after the uncommitted movement, after the primaries. Okay? Abdul al-Sayed endorsed Kamala Harris before Haley Stevens did, 2 days before. There's this tendency on the left sometimes to treat this as like not a serious movement, but instead to treat this movement as a gate-kept like hipster thing. You know, we got to keep the moral purity in our ranks. It's like, yeah, okay, that's how you arrive at like a 10-person reading group. Bring people to our side and try to explain our positions to them. It's that simple. You don't win anything with grandstanding. If Abdul al-Sayed, in exchange for the Kamala endorsement, comes out and is like, actually, I love Israel and AIPAC is not that big of a deal to me at all, then yeah, then you can be angry. You can be upset. But if Abdul al-Sayed isn't doing that, if Abdul al-Sayed is like even with the Liz Cheney shit, right? Liberals always said like, oh, Kamala Harris hugged and kissed Liz Cheney on stage. I said it. I got mad about this allegiance as well. But if Kamala Harris was like, I'm shedding the dead weight. Joe Biden is in the past. In the rearview mirror, we're actually the hope and change candidacy. We are going to address the crimes of the administration that I was a part of as far as the genocide in Gaza. I made it very clear. I wouldn't give a the Liz Cheney endorsement. And on top of that, I would have door knocked for her. I said it even back then. It's so ironic that people don't realize this. You know who doesn't realize this? The liberal commentariat doesn't realize this. And it's the ultras that don't realize it either. Yeah, Alex Kane says, to criticize Abdul al-Sayed over the Kamala Harris endorsement is to criticize him for trying to win against a MAGA right-wing figure who would vote to give Israel billions. Yes, Harris helped perpetrate a genocide, and yes, he needs to win black voters. That's the calculus. Yeah, I know he's doing real politics, but the Harris al-Sayed endorsements feel unnecessary. She lost Michigan. It's not like she's a huge boost to him, and her Gaza position alienates people he needs. At this point, his task is winning over the voters who are otherwise voting for Democrats. He doesn't need to reinvent the wheel. He just needs to do fractionally as well as Jocelyn Benson is. Unifying the party around him is a big part of that. Yeah, for sure.
People is a fundamental fact of our country. I don't think that we should be worried about what somebody somewhere believes. I think we should be focused on what our plan to improve people's lives are.
Another person who's been made an issue is Hasan Piker, who obviously endorsed Abdul al-Sayed in Michigan. You've been on his live stream, at least a few times. He's somebody who said, that America deserved 9/11. Now he backed off from that.
Yes, he's apologized.
But he said a lot of controversial things. Is he somebody that should have a role in the progressive movement going forward?
I think
what's really funny about this, by the way, because AOC has a really good answer for this, but before we even get here, what's really funny about this is like, ABC asking this question to AOC when it's like the reality of the matter is, although AOC will defend me here, like even if she didn't, it's not like I go away. You know what I mean? Like, of course I have, whether people say yes or no to this question is utterly irrelevant to whether I currently have a place, whether this community currently has a place in this broad movement, right? They'll say like, oh, well, like AOC will defend me on this. And I think she delivers a really great answer to this question, right? But like ultimately ABC or CBS or the Beltway pundits and their attitude about this mass movement is utterly immaterial to where we are. Now, of course, the other side of the story is they can ask me personally, which they choose not to. But yeah, Paul Bless says, don't know who put out the memo to flip this into dismissal of cancel culture, but they cooked. I don't know who did that, but they did cook. I agree. Whoever it was, they must have cooked real hard on this.
When we look at our elections that have happened, we have lost young people. Much hay was made about the fact that we lost young men in the last election. And many of the same consultants that are wringing their hands today were the same ones talking about how we need to go on Joe Rogan and we need to be not so, willing to engage in cancel culture. And I think that the flip-flopping on this is a tactical debate that they may be having. I think the fact of the matter is that Democrats can go on Joe Rogan, Democrats can go on Fox News, Democrats have a responsibility to build a winning coalition, and young people are engaging in mediums and conversations that we have a responsibility to attend to and be responsive to. And even right now, when we look at this insurgent wave of what is happening, oftentimes when people are doing that Monday morning quarterbacking and what demographics voted where, the big one that's being ignored is the generational tidal wave. Tsunami.
I mean, you see it in the polling. It is significant.
Millennials are not, punk kids anymore.
Yeah.
We're grown adults with mortgages and kids, and that generation is starting to be decisive at the polls, and there is anger at being ignored, sidelined, having our economic futures mortgaged by the generations that came before us on everything from the economy to climate, and we're taking the reins.
So we're almost out of time to get to your future. I'm sure you saw the poll in New Hampshire that had you as the leading candidate, leading choice for Democrats. First, are you going to run for president?
I mean, I'm focused on winning the midterms. I'm running for Congress right now.
But
she didn't say no. Oop. She didn't say no. I don't know how it bows for her electoral prospects, but I love how much she just hates boomers as a political class. I mean, it's impossible not to feel that way. I mean, I'm sorry. I love my boomers in here too, but there is this, Gen X especially, there is this attitude. I mean, it's still class politics at the end of the day, because it is the only generation that has benefited from a higher degree of socialization and the beginnings of a social democratic system that was eroded, especially destroyed post Reagan, right? But they have all of the wealth still. There are trillions of dollars of wealth currently captured in the hands of these 65-plus-year-olds, and they're holding on to that shit. They got the death grip on it, okay? They got the goddamn death grip on it. Trillions of dollars of assets, of wealth, just basically waiting to go to a bunch of horrible industries that are being designed specifically to cater to these boomers, to these Gen Xers, in palliative care, in old folks' homes. These are some of the most corrupt institutions out there too, and they're just going to milk. They're going to milk the trillions of dollars of wealth that's captured in the hands of some very, very old folks.
I mean, do you see this as something? I know you said you're open to it. Is it a realistic possibility for you?
I haven't ruled out the possibility, and I'm very humbled to the tremendous amount of support out there. I think that we have a responsibility to remain focused on the midterms and not on our individual aspirations or plans.
And running for Senate against Chuck Schumer, is that also something that's possible?
I mean, I think that anything is possible at this juncture.
All right, and then before you go, you did have a personal announcement that you made. It was interesting to see you kind of open up in, on an Instagram Live, I believe it was. So tell me what it was and why you decided to do it.
I think it's important for us to normalize these conversations, especially in this political environment. The Trump administration has...
Remind us what the announcement was.
Yeah, sure. So I have decided to start the process of freezing my eggs.
Yeah.
And in this political environment where this administration is denying reproductive care to women across the country, from abortion rights to the ability to carry out a healthy pregnancy, I think it's important for us as leaders to have these conversations and share these processes, especially for working women across the country, and normalize them.
Okay, all right, Congresswoman.
That was cool too. And I know people are gonna be freaks about this, but yeah. That was very cool of her to talk about.
Joins us now.
Oh my God. Oh, this was goated. I already listened to this interview, pre-watch Piker, but this was, masterclass, by the way. Larkin is, God, we really got to get him in the office, man. He will be one of the best warriors. DSA National has not had a lot of victories, let's be real, with the exception of Maylott, I think, and Chris Rabb. DSA National has made very limited amounts of endorsements. He's one of them. And he is so goated. We have to phone bank for him. We have to do everything in our power. Oh, was Donovan? No, Donovan wasn't national. Donovan was local, I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong. I might be mistaken.
With us on Fox News Sunday. Good to have you.
Could be national as well. Donovan was national. My mistake. My apologies.
Your reaction to the James Carvilles, the Van Jones of the world, who say DSA does not belong in the Democrat Party. It doesn't align.
He's my only white boy this round. Okay, on the federal side, on the districts, on the representative side, on the Senate side, this is my only white boy, I think. And let me tell you, okay, he's worth it. Oh, Nate Bluin too. Nate Bluin as well. Sorry, you're right. Nate Bluin as well. My mistake. Nate is unfortunately lost his race, but he's Toyotathon. Okay, fair. Two white boys, three white boys. But to be fair, he's the only DSA cadre. He's the only DSA cadre out there. Okay.
And with their interests is the idea to within the party,
Also, Toyotathon is not a white boy necessarily, but a white man. Okay. Toyotathon is something different.
Force the party to mold to your ideas, or do you think you can just exist within the tent?
I think it's very funny to hear James Carville talking about an AI stupid idea generator when there's $300,000 in super PAC spending from OpenAI's super PAC going for Jared Moskowitz in our district right now. I do think that James Carville and Van Jones are missing something, that electoralism is about addition, not subtraction, and I think it is.
That's a great line. Electoralism is about addition, not subtraction. Boom!
Very foolhardy to be excluding people from the Democratic Party, that they're going to be begging for our votes in 2028. And we need to be building a majoritarian coalition that's capable of winning back power in states like Florida and taking back the House of Representatives.
So let's talk about your district specifically, where you are challenging an incumbent. You mentioned Congressman Jared Moskowitz. The Miami Herald says you're not the man for the job. They say in a district that's 25% Jewish, they've endorsed your competitor. They say this, the editorial board writing, Larkin said he does not consider anti-Zionism to be anti-Semitic, but that's disingenuous. He must know full well that many or even most Jews see anti-Zionism as a less obvious but still potent form of anti-Semitism. He may try to add his own spin to the term, but it remains offensive and is a dog whistle that no doubt appeals to anti-Semites. So what's your message to Jewish voters there in that district?
That they're a part of our coalition, and I will note that the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, which declined to endorse Jared Moskowitz in this race, made his assertion that I'm running against him solely for his religion patently false. They listed the Medicare for All, $25 an hour, universal child care, paid family and medical leave. So there's some contentious issues that we're dealing with down here in South Florida, and the media is not a monolith, and the South Florida Sun-Sentinel rightfully called out Jared Moskowitz's claim as false, and we reject the claim that anti-Zionism is equatable to anti-Semitism. I'm proud to have the support of Jewish organizations like Jewish Voice for Peace, and we're building a coalition for our collective liberation to stand up against anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, anti-queer discrimination, and for the well-being and equality of all people who call our nation home.
You also have support from someone named Hasan Piker. He has made a lot of headlines. He's helped fundraise for you. The Anti-Defamation League says he's got a history of rhetoric that sanitizes and justifies violence and terrorism against the state of Israel and using derogatory rhetoric towards Jews. That
he does the Shia smirk.
Claims that they say Orthodox Jews are inbred, which he did subsequently apologize for in response to backlash. He calls for the eradication of Zionism and demonizes Zionism as a, quote, mental illness.
Beast mode, beast mode, beast mode, beast mode. Who said that?
I could go on. He said a lot of things that are offensive to Jewish people and to those who support Israel. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist?
I think that Israel should be a secular and democratic state with equal rights for all people, and the current configuration of the state of Israel is a religious supremacist one that privileges Jewish citizens above Palestinians, and we see a two-tiered system of justice in the West Bank that's been under illegal occupation since 1967 with illegal West Bank Israeli settlers under Israeli civil law, and Palestinians who have called this their ancestral home being subject to Israeli military law with upwards of a 95% conviction rate. So the two-tiered system of justice, the two-tiered political system in Israel is not one that I think the United States should be supportive of if we believe in upholding democracy, not just here, but around the world.
Do you think that...
Notice how he sidestepped the silly, like, do you endorse Hassan's statements and just delivered what his perspective on the matter is, which is, of course, not dissimilar to the international human rights organizations, the United Nations, you know, pretty much everyone, ICC, ICJ. Yeah, he ignored the bullshit and he delivered his talking points. He delivered the truth, okay?
We should cut off defensive weapons, either by purchase or by us supplying them to Israel defensive weapons.
I do not make a distinction between offensive and defensive weaponry. Israel has been rightfully attributed as committing a genocide and apartheid. Virtually every international body that has studied this issue, from the United Nations multiple inquiries, the Amnesty International group, even Israeli human rights organizations, including B'Tselem. And when the United States is in violation of not just international law, but our own law, the Leahy laws that prohibit the Department of State and Department of Defense from providing military assistance to foreign security forces accused of gross human rights violations, we're in violation of our own law right now. And so at minimum, we need to condition this aid. But if it were up to me, I do not think that we should be aiding and abetting a genocide by either providing taxpayer-funded weaponry or selling it.
Okay, Hasan Piker also famously said that America deserved 9/11. Do you think we deserve 9/11?
No, of course not. No, I think Hasan has walked back that statement, and no, I do not agree with that whatsoever.
Okay, Act Blue advertised a gathering for you in Brooklyn on Friday night. The host committee listed, including Linda Sarsour. She has said things like, you can't humanize Israelis, they are the enemy, you can never work with them. She's advocated for a one-state solution, meaning...
Oh, now we're moving to Linda Sarsour, my queen. That's a new one. Or, well, that's an old one, but now a new one.
No Israel. Do you understand how having people like that supporting you in a fundraiser or any other way is very troublesome?
I will always have endless amounts of respect for Linda because she was so alone, okay? She was so alone for the longest time, dude. She was the original sin eater. And she's a hijabi Muslim woman. It's like so much worse. At least I can like kind of dupe people into thinking that I'm a white boy, you know what I mean? Which I say I'm white all the time, and yet people don't treat me as such, especially as of late. But like regardless, I am a white boy, you know? I'm a man at the end of the day. So like, yeah, Linda Sarsour as a hijabi Muslim woman, as a prominent pro-Palestine advocate for the longest time was so alone, you know?
To Jewish people.
Again, Linda's not a candidate for office, and I think when she talks about one secular and democratic state with equal rights, that's a principle that most Americans support. I don't think we want to be supporting a country where there's a two-tiered system of justice, where people do not enjoy the same political or even rights of movement with the fragmentation of the West Bank and the construction of illegal Israeli settlements. So no, I do not believe that Linda is speaking towards anything but our common humanity and upholding peace and justice and equality for people in Israel and Palestine. So I understand that this is an issue that has not gotten its due diligence in media for a very long time, but I think that now what we are seeing with the contribution of our taxpayer dollars and what they're going towards, with not just the actions in Gaza, the genocide or the apartheid in the West Bank, but now with 1 million people in Lebanon forced to be refugees by Israeli occupation. And now we're being dragged into this very unpopular war with Iran that, at Marco Rubio's own admission, has been at the behest of Israel's government.
Do you think that there's an existential threat to Israel's existence based on some of the folks in its neighborhood?
I think that the people, the countries in the Middle East want to see the Palestinians' right of return. They want to see the ability for people in Israel, in Palestine, to have equal rights. And I don't think that that means the destruction or some attribution of violence towards what the ultimate objective is, which is just having people's rights respected equally and not having Palestinians suffer as second-class citizens in their ancestral homeland.
All right, Oliver Larkin, we know this is one of the top issues within the party, within the DSA, how you get to any common positions you can on these issues regarding Israel. We'll keep talking about them, and we appreciate your time today.
This was 1010, no notes. I love that the Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream is just the Israel broadcast. David Marcus, Fox News digital columnist, says, Piker knows and understands that his value is almost entirely in the primaries. General elections are a time for the communist bear to hibernate, not to hunt. He will slink away, but his videos with Abdul are forever. I don't think these guys understand. David Marcus, don't blame the conservatives. This is the left that canceled Hasan Piker. Conservatives, including Turning Point USA, defend Piker's right to speak, while liberal outlets and politicians avoid the issue. The American left got a taste of its own politically correct cancellation medicine. As controversial podcaster and recent Democratic Party kingmaker, Hasan Piker has had his speaking engagement at the University of Washington taken off the calendar for reasons that can only be related to his, shall we say, unorthodox rhetoric. While not explicitly attacking Hassan the Hun, as he calls himself, the school said in a statement, going forward, procedures will be updated. In plain English, what they're saying is, we have no idea if this lunatic who dresses up like Chairman Mao is going to repeat his claims that America deserved 9/11 or that Israelis are parasites or that Stalin is misunderstood, and we don't want to be responsible for it. I love that he's just like adding his own seasoning to statements. I've never said that Israelis are parasites. Fair enough, even though the vast majority of conservatives and right-leaning organizations, including Turning Point USA, which knows a thing or two about having college. You know what's really funny? There's only one prominent state legislator that went on the record on JNS and supported this ban. He was a Republican, of course. Yeah. Travis Couture, Republican state representative, told JNS, I'm happy that the University of Washington, for literally the first time ever, has made the correct decision to not have an America-hating communist spread his hatred and terrible ideology to young people at our taxpayer-funded universities. So, no, it's not left that canceled me, dumbass. It's not the left that canceled me. Of course it was the Republicans. Maybe some prominent Democrats were quiet about it. Who knows? However, the same cannot be said about the Democratic politicians and liberal media who have been whitewashing Piker as an important young voice who deserves to be heard and are now silent themselves when he's the victim of silencing and cancellation. He's right. He's just doing this in a disingenuous manner. He's not wrong about the fact that Democrats loved me when I was f***ing people out. As people that normally don't participate in the primaries and whatnot. But Rick Scott's been demanding that I get canceled in all of my prominent speaking engagements. Rick Scott's been there being like, you have to cancel this guy, whatever. No, Hassan, they will not, because they're glad it's happening. They're tired of having to twist themselves in the knots to defend your offensive blatherings just because DSA candidates can use you up to gin up votes in low turnout primaries. Even his closest pals are realizing that Piker is a general election poison. Look at this. It all makes you wonder why Piker's too toxic for the University of Washington yet valued. This is trying to drive a wedge. Remember what I said? Republicans are utilizing the establishment Democratic media machine, constantly trying to discipline myself and discipline electeds for aligning with myself and the DSA to get to silence them into submission, because from their electoral calculation, it's not great to constantly have to answer questions about me, right? And they're using that as an opportunity to make it seem like there's this real division here, okay? There's this real division. The reality is, I do not expect Abdul El-Sayed to come out and speak out against this. I expect the Democratic Party and the more prominent establishment Democrats to be like, look, I don't agree with everything Hassan says, but he has a right to say it, especially on an issue such as this one. If they want to fucking, yes, my dad. It's my dad. He's cooking. It happens. Or it's not even my dad right now. Left-wing politicians and pundits spent weeks insisting Piker's a vital voice, especially for the young, but they won't defend him when he's silenced here because they're actually happy to have academia push him to the side so they don't have to. Meanwhile, today, it is conservatives calling out the censorship. The fact that they're trying to take ownership over this as like conservatives are still defending free speech, whereas liberals are not, is a major misstep by liberals. It's a major misstep by liberals. It goes along with the same attitude here. Abdul al-Sayed did not disavow me or the platform that he also participated in. He disavowed the 9/11 comments, which is fine because I too disavowed the 9/11 comments, which Abdul also represented. So what Politico is doing is actually this not so subtle sleight of hand. They're making it seem like because they couldn't get the soundbite or the quote that they wanted out of people like Bernie, out of people like Abdul, out of people like AOC, they're turning around and making it seem like they did the disavowal anyway. So for liberals who have also participated in this smear operation, okay, what they do not realize is this is an attempt to drive a wedge between certain elements of the base. This is a non-story given Hasan Piker long ago disavowed Hasan Piker's 9/11 comments. Also, will Mike Rogers be asked to disavow Trump's repeated racist remarks, including his racist attack on al-Sayed and his wife today? Or will the media asymmetry continue when it comes to Dems? Yeah, 100%. Democrats need to be strong. Okay? Democrats need to be strong across the board. Even Democrats that I don't like. They need to actually recognize the moment that we're in currently. Okay? Because what's going on is very deliberate. What's going on right now is an opportunity to try to get anything they can to be like, oh, he disavowed his comments. That means he disavowed him entirely. Okay? And then they turn around and go, see, you disavowed him. Why did you go and campaign with him anyway? That's what's going to come afterwards. Okay? Because what will come next is centrist Democrats, establishment Democrats leaning into Republican attacks. Republican attacks that revolve around how, Republican attacks about how like, oh, well, Abdul, you're hypocritical. So the first part about this, from my estimation, the first thing that, you know, the electeds are doing, and they're doing it well, is to just be like, yeah, he doesn't agree with the comments. I don't agree with the comments. Who cares? This is, you know, Republicans weaponizing cancel culture. The second line is to flip it, okay? So they've done the first push. The second line is to now say, look, he disavows the comments. I disavow the comments. It's ridiculous that this is a primary fixture when the president is currently Donald Trump saying that he's going to genocide the Iranians, refusing to solve the crisis in inflation that he ran on and won on, claiming that he was going to be the peace president, and instead has only created more wars and more instability. If Democrats behaved like Republicans a little bit more, not like aligned with them politically, but behaved like Republicans, they would make a big deal out of the University of Washington thing because it's a direct First Amendment violation. They would demand an investigation. And it's not to like defend me. I'm just saying in general, if this happened to anybody else, I would say the same thing. Because for years and years, that's precisely what the Republicans did. While they championed cancel culture, they were able to successfully make it seem like it was the liberals that were pro-cancel culture, anti-free speech. And they were able to do that because they would send some far more the vile commentators, the campuses, specifically to create instability and chaos on said campuses, like Milo Yiannopoulos, like a self-avowed neo-Nazi, right, to college campuses, and they would defend it. For years and years, they would defend it on the principle of the First Amendment. They defended the Turning Point USA stuff. They defended Richard Spencer. Milo Yiannopoulos and Richard Spencer are straight up neo-Nazis, okay? And while they were still continuing the cancel culture and the anti-free speech initiatives far more successfully than liberals ever could, right? They were able to create an environment. They were able to create a media environment where on the one hand, they were bludgeoning the left with anti-speech initiatives and simultaneously making the public feel like the Republicans were the free speech party. This played a major role in elections. This still plays a major role in our elections. I think a lot of people don't realize it. They don't recognize it at all. So yeah, I wish the Democrats broadly, like the establishment Democrats, would be a little bit more clever. Even if they disagree with me, I wish they would be a little bit more clever and take advantage of not only the reality here, but take advantage of this current media environment and say, look, it's very clear that only one party has genuinely tried to undermine the First Amendment. It's the Republicans. That's precisely what they did with Mahmoud Khalil. That's precisely what they did with Öztürk. They weaponized ICE to kidnap people for speech in direct violation of the First Amendment. And we're over here still maintaining this idiotic notion that it's actually the liberals. Yeah. Arturo Dominguez had a good take too. The amount of time legacy media wasted on this weekend's Sunday political talk shows asking lawmakers and candidates about Hasan Piker and not the issues that are affecting everyday people speaks to the elitist and wholly biased attitude we see across U.S. corporate news media. They don't give a about you, as noted by how they associate with the bigots in the White House. All corporate news cares about is sensationalizing your demands of lawmakers who are supposed to represent you so they can control the narratives of the stories they report. It benefits them, and in the process, they fail at holding power to account. They're putting on nothing short of scripted reality. They're putting on nothing short of a scripted reality TV show. Precisely what it is. So I beg people not to fucking cave. I beg people not to capitulate to this right-wing framing. I know it's going to be tough, and this is one of the this is one of the aspects that I'm referencing. Like
everyone being like, Abdul has a fuck ton of work to do mending bridges.
So what's really funny about this statement, as you guys know, is it comes from fucking obviously a clip chimp that Republicans ran with, but it started off with establishment Democrats who I was calling out. And what's really interesting about this is the attitude on Twitter is somewhat different than the attitude on Instagram. I saw the comments on the Instagram post and everyone was like, what the f- you guys talking about? He has every right to be paranoid. It's not paranoia, it's the truth.
Here's the fucking take nuke for you, okay? You are all unbelievably Islamophobic pieces of okay? You literally called the dude a terrorist for months on end and like called him a sexist, misogynist, terrorist, bad candidate, doesn't fake doctor when he has like 2 degrees, and now you're gonna sit there and be like, well, you know, you really gotta come to me now. Like, what are you talking about? Do you want to fucking win or not? Lock the in, okay? Lock the in. And I do worry that there are some out there who, in an effort to make sure that this narrative that a progressive can win in a state like Michigan doesn't take root, will literally either subtly or, you know, not so secretively endorse Mike Rogers.
Okay, it is.
I don't even understand how they can take that clip and go, oh, he's talking about the voters here. What power do the voters have in framing these sorts of narratives? What voter was the one who was going, Abdul al-Sayed is a terrorist? It wasn't the voters who were saying that. It was obviously the pundits. The voters didn't call him a terrorist. The voters voted for Haley Stevens because they thought she was more electable. The voters don't have the capacity to give endorsements. So it's very clear what I'm talking about. The voters vote. They don't give endorsements. So what's funny about this comment is that even if you hear it out of context, because in the longer one, I like talk about consultants and the role that they play and all this stuff. Chris Hayes and Alex Wagner discuss the obsession over Hassan's 9/11 comments, but no one mentions that Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson is a 9/11 truther. Hayes, both the mainstream media and the right-wing media are like, this is an election about what Hasan Piker said about 9/11 7 years ago. Van Jones had to leave his job in the White House.
Some deep paranoia that Democrats so threatened by the rise of democratic socialists and hardcore progressives on the left wing would support Mike Rogers over.
Yeah, it's not deep paranoia. Michael LaRosa literally did that already. So I can't even, like, the idea that this is deep paranoia is ridiculous. There are literal people going on Fox News, the same people who were doing exactly what I was talking about in the primaries, straight up are now endorsing Mike Rogers.
Abdul al-Sayed. What the fuck should happen here with Hasan Piker? Like, what should Democrats do? I mean, is this the case where it's like, don't talk about him? Should Abdul al-Sayed continue to campaign with him?
I don't really know. I mean, at one level, like, I think there's a little irony in like the whole discourse being like the left needs a Joe Rogan, and then like getting the closest thing to it and being like, not like that, not like that, not like that. No. And it's like, do you ever watch Joe Rogan's show and he says crazy stuff all the time? Like, I think there's a difference between going on someone's show and campaigning with them hugely, right? So like, I think you can go on lots of people's shows. I've been on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher says all sorts of things that that not only do I disagree with, he says some things I really like find pretty wrong. The big question is,
like, that's the difference between me and like a lot of the established Democrats. Kamala Harris's endorsement, I welcome with open arms. But these guys, on the other hand, are like, no, just just campaign with Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a towering force that's going to bring in voters. Hassan, on the other hand, is electoral poison. What are you talking about? So far, I at least played somewhat of a role in someone winning a primary in Michigan. Kamala Harris didn't. I know that Kamala Harris has much, much better approval ratings with the audiences, with the voters that Abdul needs to capture. So I understand it. That's the part of a broad tent. That's part of being in a broad tent. That's why I'm not, regardless of my disagreements with Kamala Harris, I'm like, oh, it's amazing. There are people in here that find it to be unfathomable that Abdul is like receiving the Kamala Harris endorsement, and I tell him to shut up and grow up. Meanwhile, the very same people will then still turn around and go, no, actually, no, you should go away. You should go away, please. If you guys thought I was general election poison, why the f were you so mad about my refusal to endorse Kamala Harris because she was not distancing herself from the genocide in Gaza that the administration she was a part of participated in? It don't make no damn sense.
Campaigning with. I don't think it makes a ton of sense in a general election, frankly, to campaign with Hasan Piker. I think you also can't control what a 35-year-old streamer is going to say. I also think that he is learning the lesson that, like, with great power comes great responsibility. This is a dude who streams like 7 days a week for years. Do you know the amount of words he said? Like, you're going to say some stuff. Part of the genre of what he's doing is saying stuff. I don't know how much the guilt by association works in the era of Donald Trump. Like, the man had dinner with Nick Fuentes. So I do think there's a little bit of like the associational politics have lost a little bit of their sting. But
by the way, people are making it seem like Chris Hayes was like daggering me. It's not. He's not. This is perfectly reasonable.
The thing is, like, if Hasan Piker wants to contribute to the success of the movement, like, he's probably going to have to watch what he says a lot more. And I get that, like, wrong. He's been in a different lane, but one of the things that all of us, I think, with public platforms start to learn is that, like, your words have consequences. And it doesn't mean that you, like, say things you don't believe. It doesn't mean you don't say things you do believe, but it does mean that, like, how you select your words and the way that you communicate really does matter.
Like, everyone,
I don't even disagree with that. To be fair, since 2024 election, you said America deserves 9/11. Oh wait, that's almost a decade ago. Weird. Yeah, no, it's not. He wasn't even like. Yeah, I agree with everything that he said. To be fair. A one-on-one tough interview on a Sunday show with Piker would be quite funny, since here's the one-on-one tough interview with the most prominent Sunday show just had with a war criminal who has ICC warrants for his arrest. Here are all 5 questions. Please tell me which one of these is tough. Keep in mind, this is an indicted war criminal chiefly responsible for killing over 20,000 children. You would think that this was old college buddies meeting for a beer. Sunday shows don't do tough questions to anyone but those they view as hostile to the U.S. empire and Zionism. Here's the kicker. Look how adversarial they are to power. Yeah, Kristen Welker said, well, as you have said, one of your staunchest allies was Senator Lindsey Graham, and we cannot thank you enough for coming on this program to remember his life and his legacy in this moment of national mourning. Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Perhaps before Piker, Sunday shows like NBC's Meet the Press, ABC's This Week, and Donnie's Employer CNN, which has the Sunday show State of the Union, could book a Palestinian guest since they have yet to do so in 34 months of genocide. To be fair, he's cooking Donnie here, but Donnie wasn't suggesting that as in the same way where he's like, oh, they should be negative to Hasan. He's just channeling the spirit of what that process would look like in an effort to make it happen. You already talked with Alex Wagner about Republicans trying to cancel you too.
The same reactionary forces that sit around and say we love free speech will then very quickly turn around and demand your deplatforming. I, on the left, get there's so much advocacy around trying to deplatform me all the time. And it's oftentimes by the right. It's most commonly by the right. Like the whole, even the America Deserves 9/11 moment, right? From 2019, where I'm talking about the concept of blowback, but of course I'm, not using the best language to describe this situation, was an initiative that was, that made its way to Fox News. And Fox News was doing a 48-hour news coverage on it. They're still doing it 6 years later because, the Cuomo campaign decided this was a viable line of attack.
America deserved 9/11, dude.
That's Zoran's buddy, Hasan Piker, saying we deserve 9/11. It's a disgrace to every life lost.
It was not. It was a major failure, which I could have told them. They should have given me the $3.5 million instead.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda, Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah, shouts out to Michael Bloomberg for that one, and also the other major donors. But But like that, what is that if not the exact same thing that conservatives rail against? There is this
snowflake
hypocrisy.
thing really is applicable way more to the right.
Dude, you know what's fucking crazy? Like, I'm the most consistent motherfucker out here. Like, straight up, it's crazy because like Alex Wagner's over there being like, yeah, no, it's there's actually we're gonna lend some credibility to the right-wing framing on this stuff and like what he's saying when we had a conversation about this and she was agreeing with me
At this point, then
but that's always been the case. Cancel culture.
Anyway, I'm not saying like I'm not criticizing her. I'm just, at the end of the day, Hassan derangement syndrome is the foundational core pillar of all centrist politics in modern America, and I think that's beautiful. I know it's crazy how much people lose their shit. I just don't understand why they can't be normal, and they just kind of like, that was before you, singular, try to doom America to communism. Yeah. Human psychology is wild. Yeah, I just, what I'm seeing right now, and nobody ever listens to me, so it doesn't matter even a little bit, but what I'm seeing right now is that the midterm strategy of the Republicans to identify myself and like, you know, socialist candidates and even Tallarico as like far-right radicals is actually designed to take advantage not of their own base's enmity towards these sorts of values, but it's actually designed to knife as many different angles in the Democratic Party's broad coalition as possible. And I do worry that a lot of establishment Democrats are going to lean into these attacks with the hopes that they can basically get the left flank candidates to try to cut themselves away from the Democratic Socialists of America. They're trying to segment out different aspects of the Democratic Party's base to generate voter apathy at a time when they're facing a blue wave, +7 National Democratic Party favoring election year. They're smarter than us. I'm sorry. They're smarter than most of the establishment Democrats are. They know that their platform is toxic. They know that they have nothing that they can lean into as far as delivering things to Americans. So they're trying to divide and conquer all the same. We have to oppose this. There will be people to my left that say, Hassan, you're hugging and kissing the establishment Democrats. You're a failure. You're a phony. They don't understand what I'm trying to do. And there will be plenty of establishment Democrats that will also lean into the Republican base. They will also turn around and mirror the same exact attacks. They have done so already. They are part of the reason why. They're part of the reason why so much of this line of attack is salient. As we covered already, preview of the GOP midterm convention. Yeah, the CW is that you've got to be for something, not just against something, but scroll your feed in GOP midterm argument is that you must vote Republican to stop the socialists and Hasan Piker. The status quo is mountain we've been taught to stare at in awe. Don't even think about climbing up there, boy. Yeah. So yeah, it's time to have some courage, okay? It's time to have some courage. It's time to have some backbone. It's time to have some courage. Like, when I see stuff like Will Lawrence leaving the Democratic Socialists of America, I get a little bit discouraged. He started that chapter in his living room, from what I understand. And then he's like, oh, I'm running away from the DSA platform. They're going to still hit you on it, big dog. Be bold. Be brave. You will win. Excite people. Don't be afraid to lead. Here's Abdul Al-Sayed also cooking on the same issue.
So again, I'm a lot more focused on who I'm campaigning to rather than who I might campaign with.
When asked about Hasan Piker's comments on 9/11, Senator Bernie Sanders called it a dumb statement. Do you agree? Do you disavow those comments that America deserved 9/11?
Of course it was a dumb statement. And of course, I think Hasan himself would say that was a dumb statement. He disavowed it. So yes, America didn't deserve 9/11. But, you know, to sit here and play gotcha politics with a dumb thing somebody said out of context that they disavowed themselves to say, oh, well, what does that mean about what you think? I want to be held accountable for what I say and what I do, rather than this idea that we're so stuck in cancel culture that all of us agreed was a bad idea back in 2020, but we seem to want to bring back.
We are out of time, but I have to ask you before I let you.
Great take. Great take. What would you have said to your younger self if you told them that one flippant comment would become national news for a week 7 years later? I mean, look, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. There's no woulda, coulda, shoulda on this stuff. I said what I said. You know what I mean? Ironically enough, 2 days after, I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have used those words, right? I was talking about the concept of blowback, but I should not have used those words. All of this is super, super cynical. Super cynical.